I went over time on my previous talk, and I'm not going to do that this time. I'm going to be very brief, and then we'll get us all to sit up here at the front, and you can fire arrows at us, I suppose. Anyway, I did want to bring up the idea of subsidiarity, and Stuart Ferguson suggested this as a good word. I looked it up. I had not known it before. Subsidiarity refers to dealing with a problem at the lowest level possible. And I just put it forward because it's worth us thinking about in the healthcare argument about where can we deal at the lowest level with problems. If it's in our family, can I deal with it? If it's too big for me to deal with, can the people in my church help me with it? If it's too big for them to deal with as a group, we may have to move outside, perhaps find another larger group, or perhaps move to some help from whoever can offer it. Sometimes it might be the government, but not starting out saying that we need it up there, starting out with what can we do now. And I would encourage us all to be looking within our own church and our own environment. Are we meeting the healthcare needs of our people? Do we even know who in our congregation may have a huge debt that they're just desperately trying to pay off over years? They don't tell us about it. I think that we are being called to make sure that we are covering at this lower level, even while we're talking about the upper level. So subsidiarity, take it to heart, think about it, use it. I had a couple of comments just because I was a family practitioner and I talked to family practitioners, and I did want to bring up something that has not been mentioned yet, and that is patient-doctor bond and how healthcare system at the moment is really making inroads on that. When I went through medical school and then into family practice residency, the big thing for a family practitioner was you have a bond with the patient. You are the one to whom they will reveal those other things like anorexia or stress in the family or the fact that dad hasn't been taking his pills regularly, and I think it's because he's forgetting. You know, I think there's something happening. Can't do that in 5 minutes. You can't get that rapport, and yet in the primary care system, I have to say it, the for-profit approach is driving people to shorter and shorter interactions. It's not being family practice, as we know. Secondly, the lack of cohesiveness between all of the various medical entities is breaking down our quality of care. As we have a chronically ill person, they may have 7 or 8 specialists to whom the family practitioner has sent them because it's shorter to send them off to somebody than try and cram into 5 minutes what you can't do. So they get referred, they get more tests. We don't always get the test back on time. They don't have what the family practitioner has. There's a lot of discontinuity in care, and I think it's getting worse. I'm going to push for some improvement in the communications. Now, this will make people shudder. I think we need to use the computer. I think we need to have real-time access so that somebody who gets to the emergency room, their care person can find out what was happening in their life medically and deal with them. This is huge, and it's not happening. I can't believe that for our nation we are so paper-bound. And this EKG in my office doesn't get seen by the cardiologist, so he does his own. And then there's another test, so that person does their EKG, 3 EKGs, all the costs. Nobody has all the results. So I'm making a push. Think about this for healthcare reform. And then I also want to mention malpractice, big elephant in the room for those people who practice medicine. I don't think anyone who doesn't practice in the health sphere has any idea just how heavy that sits on people. The idea that you could be accused or have a suit brought against you, even when you've been practicing to the best of your ability, the problem is not that you have the suit, although that's disrupting enough. The problem is that then you have to go and get grilled. You have to find all of the data that backs it up. You have to go through agony for a while. And it may turn out to be thrown out of court because it was frivolous. Doesn't alter how bad it feels to have to go through that. Every doctor I know practices defensive medicine. Every time you practice defensive medicine, you put the cost way up. You may be 90% sure that this particular concussion is not going to be a problem, but you would not dare not do further testing. And so the costs in our system are also being driven by that. And I've had people say all sorts of things about capping and how that doesn't work. I want to propose something very different. I want it to be like New Zealand. Okay. New Zealand, I was looking into all these other countries about their healthcare. I went to the page that had New Zealand for people coming in explaining how their healthcare system worked, and they told about how this much for the doctors and it's free because it's single payer for a lot of other things. And at the very bottom of the page, there's this line, who do we sue? And the answer is, you don't sue anybody, because they have an accident compensation board. So they have separated, they have taken malpractice suits out of the courtroom into a board where nobody has a vested interest. They're not going to get money back on this. The person can bring their complaint to the board examines it. If it's frivolous, it gets thrown out right there. If it has merit, the person still does not have access to the doctor. The board gives them the determined compensation. It's already determined. They can add more if they think that's necessary. And then, if it was a problem on the doctor's part, the board goes over to the medical side and holds them accountable. But it removes that constant friction. You know what that does for a doctor walking into a patient's room? It makes them much more free to really get involved. They're not defensive. They're not worried about, is this patient going to be the one that sues me? So I think malpractice reform is huge in cutting down costs, and costs are driving people to bankruptcy across America, paying off enormous bills. So I don't think we can ignore it, but I do want to take it out of the courts, not just deal with piddling caps. I think that we need to move it totally into a well-educated group, mixed group perhaps, but not where there's a vested interest.
This has been a presentation of the Richmond Center for Christian Study. If you would like to obtain more information about the Study Center, or if you would like to support the Center, please visit us on the web at richmondstudycenter.org. We trust that this and future presentations of the Study Center will be used of God to bring gospel transformation to every area of your life and to the culture we live in.